Thanks so much for joining me this week. We have a stinking cute kitty card to make. I love kitties. I do lots of kitty things because I'm allergic to kitties. So what technique we're going to be talking about today is no line coloring, which is such a fun technique because you stamp and it winds up looking like you colored this all by yourself. Let me show you some other samples here. Here's a corset stamp. It's been stamped in a really pale gray ink and then colored, and you can see it looks like it's just kind of hand drawn on the card, which is a really pretty look. And then let me show you this other sample here. I want to show you the difference between the two. So here's one that's been the no line coloring, so you can't see the lines in it at all. She's very soft and ethereal looking. And here's the original stamp with that black outline. And as you can see, it's just as cute. I've used the exact same colors of Spectrum Noir markers to color it in, and it still makes an adorable card. The only thing I might do is stamp maybe the same in black to match, but you can see the difference here. So it's a matter of preference, but I think it's a fun technique to try. And you know what? It makes you look like you're this amazing artist who just hand drew this beautiful image, and who does not love that? Let's go ahead and get started on this kitty card. So if you've seen my videos before, I don't go anywhere without my trusty foam board, okay? It makes me look like a stamping genius, and I'll never go without it. So here I've just cut out a label using my Spellbinders, and I'll have a list at the bottom of the video for all of that. Now, we're going to be using this stamp. It's a kitty stamp by Recollection. Virtually any Michael store carries this. It's affordable, and it comes with a lot of stamps and a couple of, cute sentiments, and I really love it because I think the cats are really funky. And we're going to be using this wiry, whiskery kind of kitty. Say that 3 times fast. That's a mouthful. So what we're going to be doing for no line stamping is we're going to be stamping it in a really pale ink. So we're going to use Spun Sugar Distress ink. Now, we're going to be using this because we're going to be coloring him pink. So the lines are just going to disappear. So you're just going to go ahead and stamp it. And unfortunately, it's so bright with my lighting, you're not really going to be able to see the lines. I think if I tilt it, you can see a tiny bit at the bottom here where the pink is, but you'll see this yourself when you go ahead and stamp your own sample. It's clearly visible. Okay, so don't worry about not being able to see it. I have this acrylic block here because I'm going to use my Spectrum Noir pens. I've got PP3, PP4, and PP5, and then just a simple gray colored pencil. So I like to use that block up there for blending, and I'll show you a little bit how I do that. I'm going to go in with my PP3, and you're just going to go in and feather in those whiskers. You're going to start with your lightest color here. And when I'm coloring a small area like this, I try to use fewer colors because the more you saturate it with the marker, it tends to bleed a little bit. So, just stay with 2 or 3 colors. And I'll show you the blending technique that I use that I think it helps you use less alcohol marker so you get less bleeding. So we're just going to fill in that whisker area there. I'm going to go in with my PP4 and just lightly flick in some darker color, just a teeny tiny bit. And then I'm going to color some on the block. And then I'm going to take back my lighter shade. I'm going to pick up that other color. Okay, and then I'm just going to blend the edges of it so it blends really seamlessly. Just a tiny little flick. Now, when you're done with this, whatever pen you use to pick up color, if you just color it off on a piece of paper or the block, it'll go back to its original color. So you don't have to worry about it staining your pens. So we're going to just take this PP3 and continue to fill in the cat. I have to tell you, my favorite thing about no line coloring is that because the lines are so pale, there's no such thing as coloring outside the line. So as you're coloring in your stamp, if you go over the line, it's okay. You can make it a part of what you're doing. So I love that because you just can't make any mistakes. And remember, even when you do mistakes, you know how I feel about that. There are no mistakes. There's embellishment opportunities. Okay, mistakes are kind of the best thing, I think, in the world because they make things even better. So try and embrace that, be fearless and go for it. And whatever you do, it's going to be fabulous. And this is really funny because as I'm talking about mistakes, I just make one right here. I used my darkest color on my lightest shade, but you know what? It's okay. There's my embellishment opportunity. I'm going to take my medium color and color over it and add my medium color just a little bit darker. You can see it's a little bit deeper shade there. I'm going to color on the block, pick it up with the lighter shade, and go ahead and blend out the edges like I did on the other one. But you know what? I'm really kind of digging the way it's turning out with this darker shade in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just take that darker shade and apply the exact same on the other side. So I love it when mistakes happen because you never know what fun is going to transpire. Okay, so let's keep going here. We're going to blend that out, and you can see his whiskers are really starting to come together. I'm going to take that PP5, that's going to be my darkest shade, and for whatever reason, I keep using the wrong end of the pen every single time, so I apologize for that. So I'm going to go in and use my darkest shade for the ears and the nose and all the little details on the cat. Now, you can barely see the mouth here and the nose, and that's okay. So what I like to do is just pick up my stamp and use it as a frame of reference. Now, I know where the mouth is. I can clearly see that, so I'm just going to go ahead and draw just a little triangle nose above it. Don't worry about it being perfect. You know, this is yours, and whatever you put down on the paper, it's going to be fabulous because it's a part of you. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take my lightest shade and start coloring. Now this part's really important. When you do no line coloring, what happens is that sometimes those areas where the body parts are, they kind of blend together. So I like to do them one at a time. I've colored his arm. I'm going to go in with my medium shade and just put a tiny line around where his arm meets his stomach. And then that way there's some differential in color. So I'm going to do the same thing with his other arm, do that same dark line. And now when I go in and color his stomach, you'll be able to see that his arms are resting there. So whenever you have those lines that cross and you need to differentiate between body parts, just add a little bit of darker shade on that line and you'll be able to get that. Okay, so we're just going to continue on flicking in the little bit of hair that's on the cat. I've got to tell you, just from watching this video, I'm feeling kind of like a rock star because on video you cannot see the outlines I'm coloring, so it looks like I'm doing this freehand. So feel free to make your own and feel like a rock star yourself because you're going to see how amazing it'll turn out, and it is so much fun to show your friends, and they just think you've hand-drawn this amazing little piece of art. So here I'm taking the lightest shade and going around his feet, and then I'm taking the darkest and going right around the edge of his feet. I like the look of that. Again, I like putting that little dark edge on the line to show where his foot starts and ends. And then you don't have to color around the tiny little feet like I did. I mean, clearly we're going to color that in with our PP5. So really all I needed to do was color the whole foot light pink and then add the dark pink because it would go right over it. But I'm kind of peculiar that way, so you know, we get the same effect no matter what. So there we have our kitty, and he's fully drawn, and you can see it looks like you've hand-drawn him yourself. Now that our kitty is complete, we're going to go in and draw in those little details like the eyes and the mouth, and that's what I use this colored pencil for. He's so kind of pastel and cute that I don't want to darken him up with black, so that's why I went for the gray. Go ahead and just draw the eyes in, and if you need to, use the stamp as a guide. And I can barely see his mouth here, so it's real easy for me to trace. But if you wanted to, you could draw your own mouth, you could draw your own eyes. They could be different from what the stamp is. You can feel free to be as creative as you want and make this kitty your own. Now, I like to add a little bit of shading, so I just very, very lightly add a little bit to the edge of his ears, and then I'm going to do the same thing along the nose, just add a tiny bit of shadow. I think this adds a little bit more dimension, and I'm going to use my gray pencil here to just fill in his collar. I'm not going to go very dark with it. Again, you know, he's cute and pastel, so I kind of want to keep that feeling to him. And then I'm going to go lightly along the edges of the arm to add a little bit more definition. And then what I like to do on the feet is I just like to do this kind of half moon shape around the cute little paw pads, I think is what they're called, on the bottom of his feet. I love the added dimension that pencil gives to an image, so definitely give that a try. So I'm just working on my background here with my kitty paw prints. Made a little mistake there, but I'm just going to add a paw print. You know, just feel free to just move around the page and use all 3 different sizes of the paw prints, and the more you go off the page, I think it adds to it looking more like a piece of background paper that you would, you know, buy at a store. So there's no right or wrong to this. Just go ahead and fill up the image. And then what I did is I just simply took it and backed it onto a black cardstock. And you know what? I have all the measurements down below for you, so you'll know how to do this. And this ribbon, I've got to tell you about this ribbon. Okay,
this ribbon came from my pajamas from last Christmas, and I loved it so much that I have saved it over a year. And that just goes to show you, okay, it pays to save these supplies because you never know what card or what project it's going to be absolutely perfect on. So next I'm just going to take my image and I'm going to back it onto a black cardstock shape. This is a Spellbinders label, and I also use the Spellbinders Circle cutting dies. So I'm going to have a list down below the video so you know exactly which ones I've used. I'm just going to stamp a little sentiment right here, and it was really hard to find a sentiment that would fit that I thought would be fun. And I remembered I had Paper Smooches slang stamps, which are really funny. I'm sorry it's a little beat up, so it's hard to read them, but they say really fun things like Uber girl and really seriously and blah, 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 and you're the bomb and oh no you didn't. So, I mean, really, really fun stuff. So I thought the word sup would be perfect for this card. If you don't know what sup means, it means like what's up, okay? So we're just going to stamp that right in the center using some black ink. And I thought it'd be really fun to hang it from the card, kind of like to mimic his collar, because he's got a little hanging collar on. I thought that would be really fun. But when I went to put this together, I felt like it needed a little bit of a punch. So I took a scrap piece of silver glitter paper and mounted those on there and just trimmed around the edges of it. And then you can see I hung it as though it's hanging from his little chain. So, and there you have it. Really fast, simple, and easy. Add a little bling and it's done. So don't be afraid to try this. Grab your stamps, go for it, try some no-line coloring. You're going to love the way that it looks. Thank you so much for joining me.